So even though it can be difficult even for me to be anxious and like have these conversations, but I know it means something is going to happen. Like more people are going to feel comfortable to be themselves and have conversations with their parents or their friends and not be embarrassed.
Do you think there's a unique circumstance going on here where we are moving from our parents who's always in survival mode, or a couple of generations above that are always in survival mode, and we're the transition from survival to thrival mode, and that brings a lot of like
bars.
Say it again.
Bars.
Do you think that brings a lot of anxiety and stuff?
It can do, because it's like a weight on our shoulders to like be this change that like needs to like see a better world.
Yeah.
But
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Untold. I'm Symiah.
I'm Shreeya.
I'm Serena.
It's your girl Nieema, and we have another guest with us today.
Sandra, hi.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi everyone. This is like my first like official podcast, so excuse me if
You're natural.
Yeah.
I know, so excuse me if I'm a bit delayed in my like thoughts and responses, but yeah, that's me.
How are
Okay.
you?
Good, thank you.
How was your journey here?
It was a long one. I feel like coming from South East London to North London is always very, very long.
Yeah.
And I've been running on about 3 hours sleep.
Oh, God. We're all in the same boat, but I'm so sorry.
Why are you guys on 3 hours sleep?
Oh.
Me and Symiah are in love.
Symiah, is that your reason? I didn't know Symiah hadn't slept. I thought she had to wake up. Oh, wow.
I'm joking.
There's a lot going on. Oh, Nieema, by the time it comes out, you might be.
You might be engaged.
This is the hard
This is
one.
manifestation.
Yeah.
Maybe. Potentially.
Hopefully with the same man.
You will be.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Yeah, but mine was just that I was out yesterday.
Living your best life.
Yeah.
The club? Where did you go?
I was in the club actually for a friend's birthday.
That's cool.
And it ended about 4 and I got home about 5.
Shout out to your
Damn.
friend. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Birthday.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. It was, I made the smart decision to go home. No after parties for me. 3 hours is okay, I'll be fine.
That's so funny that like getting home at 4 or 5 was like the
The
early
early option. Yeah.
no after
Sounding like us, to be honest.
I feel like if you want to stay out, there's always something you can do. And
Always.
there's always like, if you don't want to go home and like avoid sleeping and like being like the life of the party, you're gonna figure out something. You're always gonna want to stay out, especially if you're with your people and your friends.
Yeah.
There's always
The night never has to
Naima.
end.
Naima truly believes that.
We're kindred
in my core. I
Yeah,
believe it.
that-
Yeah. Why should I end the night if I'm having a good time?
That's like one of my best friends just like, what are we on to next? I'm like, I'm going
You
to my
literally
bed.
that.
That's what gives me anxiety.
I'm like, how do you say no? I'm like, oh, guys, I've got to do something in the morning, or it's figuring out how to say no. But I'm okay. Like I have my balance because I don't go out that much. And when I do, I'm like, I might as well like utilize
Go
the
hard.
hours.
Mm.
Go
Also,
hard.
it's becoming sparse now. We're getting older, so.
Yeah.
Not for Naima.
No, guys. First of all, this
I
is
think she's
gender.
mellowed.
I've mellowed. Thank you so much.
A little bit.
Thank you so much.
A little bit.
I have
No.
mellowed.
There's a balance.
There is a balance.
Good.
And one of the things
Mellowed.
that forces me to mellow is work. I physically can't always be out
True.
because I'm working.
Gets in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you haven't mellowed, you just have obstacles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been stopped.
Responsibilities now.
I've been stopped. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mellowed, stopped.
That was me.
Potato,
That's
potato.
my
I find that like those sort of things are very good for a release, very good for like mental health, and I know that you do a lot of work around mental health. So do you want to tell everyone what you do?
I do. I run My Life Coach Sandra, which is a mental health and wellbeing platform specifically focusing on high functioning anxiety, and it specifically focuses on like the Black womanhood experience or the woman that is in a minority ethnic group, kind of figuring out what does anxiety look like for me. And I do it on social media, and I also run a newsletter, and I do like life coaching and mindset coaching.
How long have you
So
been doing
That
it?
is so cool.
Thank you. I've been doing it since mid 2020. So I like took the plunge to start talking about it mid 2020, and then I left. So my background was working in the NHS. I went to university for biomedical science, and then I was like, this career isn't for me. And so I like took the complete leap in like 2021.
Okay,
and I was, like,
nice.
going into full time mental health and well-being. Yeah.
Was that based off of like your own experiences of like high function anxiety, where you were like, yeah,
Can you
explain what
define
it is?
it?
Not
Yeah.
everyone will know.
So it's not something that is necessarily written like set in stone. It's not in the mental health and well-being like books. It kind of falls under like generalized anxiety disorder, which is kind of like the big umbrella term for anxiety. So if you're feeling those anxious thoughts, and if you have like a lot of self-destructive tendencies and self-doubt, everyone's like nodding, and if it's just like, you know, you're like putting yourself down and things like that, and you like experience panic attacks. But I kind of dive deep into high functioning anxiety because I kind of realized that I was experiencing all of this stuff internally and like in private, and like on the outside I'm like happy-go-lucky, bubbly, I'm a people pleaser, I'm enjoying life, but like 6 days out of the week I'm spiraling.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what high functioning anxiety is. It's the you've kind of got like two sides to you. It's like there's this great side that nobody would ever think you're not anxious, you're like the most confident person, blah, blah, blah. But really and truly I do it because I'm trying to hide my anxiety. I don't want to be a victim, and I don't want anyone to think that there's any stigma or like bad things around it, because as soon as you kind of explain yourself or tell anyone that you're having like any mental health experience, even if you're like, I just don't feel great today, they're like, life is good, I'm like, no, but just like acknowledge how I'm feeling. So yeah,
You know
that's
how
kind of what it is.
you said like you dive specifically into like it as a black woman as well. Where does that part come from? I know obviously I know why, but as in like what were your experiences that kind of made you realise that side of it is important, like to talk about that, being a black woman and dealing with that? Like,
I think especially when I started doing all the stuff for like mental health online, it was so hard to even find anyone that looked like me, and to see what anxiety looked like for someone like me, especially in a world that wasn't built for me. So I'm navigating this world and I'm trying to be a perfectionist, but I'm also having to consider all of the other things and the obstacles that can come my way. And sometimes there is this like, we're trying to be strong and like keep it to ourselves, and we've got to keep moving because we don't have options but to move. So I was like, do you know what, I'm going to talk about my anxiety or my experiences with it, and if other like young black girls, so they don't have to feel as though they have to hide it or feel as though they're having an experience and that they're alone, because they're really not. Just because we don't see it on social media, hopefully I can be that one account that you see. Now I can see so many, there's so many people, and I like see podcasts like this which are amazing, but there are so many people like you and don't feel as though it's just you experiencing something. That's what
I also feel like probably the strong black woman trope plays into it a little bit, in terms of like us having to just like keep it all together at all times. And I know we've like had this conversation multiple times where like, I don't want to be your strong black woman, like I'm a damsel and all this sort of stuff.
I get it, because I'm like, I've never been a strong black woman. I'll be so honest. I've been like never. Like I've always been known. I'm such a flower. My friends call me a fairy. Like I'm very much la-di-da. So for me, I didn't fit in that like strong black woman, because it never like resonated with me, because I've never thought I should do that. I don't want to carry all of this weight. So I'm not going to.
I feel like that idea doesn't benefit black women at all.
No.
It only benefits other people to put that shit on.
From our strength.
Yeah. So like it's a way of draining us, and then if we are not okay to be drained, it's a way of making us feel guilty for not fitting, knowing that we're as strong as they perceive us to be. So
and also kind of dismissing our pain, because it's just like you kind of build up almost this like caricature of like what a black woman should be, and then it's like you almost get dehumanized, because it's just like we're just an image of what
it's literally dismissing our pain in a way, because when I like dive into it and did all that research and that work, you realize that especially like for black women or women of color, but just like women, that especially for black women, it comes up as like your anxiety can show as like irritability, and straight away if you come off like irritable or just agitated, you're given like a look like, oh, what's wrong with her? But you're not seeing my vulnerability, you're not seeing my like inner child, or I'm a little girl at the end of the, like I'm still in my 20s, like I'm figuring life out. So like allow me to like navigate, but you don't, because you've got all these weights on you. So it can be a lot.
There is a so go on.
I was gonna say, do you think high functioning anxiety is strongly associated with black women? Because we have to do a lot of suppressing. So anxiety is talked about a lot, and I guess if you view that, you tend to like think of a certain type of person or a certain presentation of that form of anxiety. But the form that you're talking about being high functioning, because we have no other choice but to keep going.
Yeah.
Do you think it presents more in our circles?
I'm not sure. I don't think it presents more in our circles. I think it's like generational. So we have to, with everyone, with the life like we're living, like we're thinking, living, like all of these things are like piling on top of us. We all have to keep going. So I feel like this high functioning anxiety, like I want to talk about it more so people realise it, because the fact that we're all continuously going, we're not taking time for ourselves, we're all going to end up being where I was at 3-4 years ago. So I'm like, no guys, it fits everyone. It just so happens that I'm the face of this for now, but then there'll be someone that's the face for men, and there'll be someone that's the face for someone that's trans or someone that's black. Like there'll be different faces, and then that'll be better. So I think it can be for anyone and everyone, but it's important to have different faces telling the same story.
Yeah, so true.
100%.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
What would you say are like ways that you've learned over the years to deal with that?
Ooh, I think the first one was acceptance. So you have to accept yourself as you are. That was my biggest. I finally accepted, like, okay, this is something I'm experiencing. It's not that I'm irritated, and it's not that the world is coming. Like, no, this is like an internal struggle. And then, I think setting boundaries was really good for me. I think boundaries is like a key term everyone talks about now. Setting boundaries was great. And also learning who I am and like what my experiences are. Like I've now started to learn a lot more about my cycle and what my period means and what all those phases of my cycle mean and what my moods are and how my anxiety presents then. So it was kind of, all of it was learning and unlearning. That's kind of...
Are you guys on the unlearning and learning process?
I was going to say, what are your like experiences of like anxiety? Do you feel like...
Yeah, I'd love to know. I mean, we can all relate.
Oh, yeah. I'm always anxious, but you guys know this.
Do you feel like you're a high functioning anxious person? Would you feel like you're a everyday standard anxiety?
Are you economy or are you premier?
I'm the first class anxiety.
Yeah.
No, I think high functioning, I think, because I still go about my day and get things done. And I feel like, because I keep on moving, as you say, keep on pushing through, then it seems a bit... like it's not as bad as it is, but I'm a big stress ball, constant state of anxiety.
It's like you're propelled by your anxiety rather than like you're propelled by fear and worry.
Interesting.
Rather than being propelled by and that's like the biggest thing.
That's
like,
interesting.
That's what high functioning. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because the reason why you prepare so well, you come off so well, is because of how anxious you are that you might not do well.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Damn.
I've never really been an anxious person before this job.
What job do you do? What this
one?
Man?
The current one. I've literally resigned recently, but
I'm all for quitting culture.
Yeah, so I work in investment banking. So by definition, it's looked at as like a high pressure environment. But I think pressure is different to anxiety though. Yeah. And I've never been an anxious person, like high functioning or otherwise. But I think I've realised like some of my behaviours or my thoughts, I was like, this is so weird. So I've realised it's actually not me, it's the environment. And sometimes it's important to like have that, what's the word I'm looking for? That barrier of being, or like just having that space to be like, okay, is it me? Is it something that I need to deal with even outside of this environment? Or am I feeling this way just because of the environment? Yeah. And then if it's the latter, then you have to leave. Yeah. Like if you can, obviously, there's also that privilege associated with it if you can leave, but like there is a sense of relief in knowing that maybe it's the environment that's making you feel this way. And actually, even if you are feeling this way, it doesn't actually mean you're less than or whatever, right? There's always ways to manage it. So, no, I don't think I've ever been anxious before this role. The last 6 months have been hard, but but I'm out now.
I'm out. Peace.
What about you?
I feel like whenever I've experienced that feeling, it's been in bouts, or like if something I feel is important is coming up. So like whether it's like an exam or like a job interview or like even like because I doing spoken word, like I feel anxious before I go on stage and stuff like that. So I feel it in moments, but I don't think I've necessarily unless I just don't notice. But I don't know if it's been a constant thing at any point. Apart from when I was in this really jarring job.
Yeah.
Placement, yeah.
And that was not placement. Yeah, my startup company job that I went to.
Okay.
Then I would be working from until like 8 every day, no break,
no boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like at that point, like that was the first, because in uni, I was never like brought to the point where I wanted to cry because of stress. But at that job, I wanted to cry because of stress. So that's when I realised, like...
Yeah, that is Monday for you. That's me. For me, that was a normal Tuesday.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think maybe it's a bad thing, but I think I forced my tolerance to be high. So when I've clocked that, okay, I'm either feeling like overwhelmed, I'm feeling anxious, it's usually when it's at a really
bad
peak level, which is probably not a good thing. But also I think recently I've been trying to, like, if I start to clock I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, then I'll just like say it out loud to someone. So then I'm like, okay, like rather than letting it boil up until the point where I'm like too
point where, like, either you're aggressive or like there's like someone will be like, oh, that was rude, or like, you're like snippy with someone. It's better to like get it from the beginning.
Yeah,
it's like, this is how I'm feeling.
I think my when I've been feeling that way, I think it's so internalized though. So I agree with you. I think no one, like, that's one thing I've noticed is that no one would look at me and be like, she could ever feel this way.
Yeah. So
because when I told my my MD like why I'm leaving, how I've been feeling, he was so shocked.
I love it when they're shocked. I'm like, I've had a straight face this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might not have looked sad, but I haven't looked happy.
Yeah. I was like,
there's no joy coming from my face.
Yeah. Like, what? But,
and did they at least like offer you anything or like try?
Oh,
like,
yeah. They tried a lot, but the damage was done. I think I wouldn't have. It would have been unfair for me to stay. Cause
do you think if you had like had that conversation earlier, you would have?
I did, you know. If you're watching this, but no, I did. I definitely did. I tried to bring up because that's one thing. Like I like to face issues head on anyway. So I don't beat around the bush. I literally be like, this is the issue. This is the person I have an issue with. Can you do something about it? And he was like, you know, he thought it was imposter syndrome. And I was like, no, I told you my voice isn't internal. I've never had that issue. The voices were external. Like, and then So I definitely tried to bring it up. So this is.
They love that
It's not.
syndrome thing.
They love it. It's not imposter syndrome. You think I'm an imposter?
Yeah, exactly.
I think for someone else to ask you if it's imposter syndrome,
you actually
put that
think,
on me.
never felt that.
I don't feel imposter syndrome.
Yeah, ever. I know I'm qualified to be in that room because I'm not white.
Yeah,
if I was a white man, I know they're not hiring me underqualified. In fact, I'm overqualified. Yeah.
And also, can I just say, there's two issues I have with imposter syndrome. One is they keep on saying, like, assuming that I'm having it. No, you're just making me feel uncomfortable. That's what's going on. The other thing is syndrome. It's like it's my fault. It's the environment. You can't say it's someone's syndrome. It's you've made an uncomfortable environment. That's all.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I feel like social media especially, some of these words and terms are coming out and they're being misused. And I feel like, I guess more of a question for you, like on your platform, how do you kind of navigate all the terms and all the like,
I think that's one side where my anxiety like helps because I'm so like hyper fixated on everything and making sure everything's like okay. Because one, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counsellor, and I would never portray myself as that. And I always like offer disclaimers like these are the conversations and the options. But I think with social media, especially like TikTok, like you have a lot of people thinking ADHD and it's okay, you can watch these things but you have to do something like take away something from it. It's like, okay, you've seen it on social media, fine, but now go to your doctor or go to your consultant or self-refer and just ask for that clarification. You're like, I do. Because information is great. Like, I love sharing information, but I always like start off with, this is my experience, maybe you can relate, and then go from there. But I can never say, this is what you're going through, because I don't know you. I don't know anyone through a screen, and people don't know me through a screen. I'm not going to share every part of myself. So just take everything with a pinch of salt and then do more research on top of it. So I don't use too many keywords. I just speak.
Yeah.
Just
Makes
humanize it.
What's your experience with anxiety?
I've realised in the last couple of years that I'm extremely anxious. I'm way more anxious than I thought I was. And like actually I had a situation when I was at work and I was like, there's nothing, I'm not stressed, like I'm fine. But my heart rate was like 170 and my like chest was really tight. And like I literally was like I feel like I almost can't breathe, but I was like I don't like there's nothing wrong, like what's going on, like I don't understand like why this is happening to me. And everyone was like, maybe just like go for a walk, like leave the office, like like do something. And then I was just like, I feel like often in anything my body will tell me before I'm able to like realize. So like I'll get like bad migraines if I'm like super stressed, or like I'll struggle, like there's different ways that will present itself. And so at the moment I've realized that I'm actually probably, when you were talking about like being driven by fear and just like that sort of thing of like I'm quite an extroverted person, I'm super like outgoing and like and so people don't expect this is my whole vibe. People would never expect me to be an anxious person. And I remember actually I had counselling when I was in college for like a lot of different stuff that was going on, and she was like, it sounds like you have anxiety. I was like, anxiety?
Like, what's that?
What does that mean? And then I felt like, I thought that was just a period of time whilst I was going through, I call college my 2 dark years. And so I thought that was that time. But now I'm realising as an adult that I think I am actually an anxious person, which is quite funny.
It's okay to have anxious experiences, even if you don't want to label yourself, because sometimes I don't want to label myself, because then it can be like, oh, this is who you are. I'm like, sometimes it's okay to have experiences, because you never know, you never want to self-diagnose. But if someone is like, oh, that sounds really similar, or that sounds kind of, just explore it and see if you can get help or help yourself in some kind of way. And
I do think though, like there's something to say about being black, or like, I don't know about you guys, but my family are definitely not, or weren't, they've gotten better, but like when I was in college they were like, what have you got to be anxious about? You've got a roof over your head. You've got, do you know what I mean? And I feel like often when it comes to like people of colour, it's like, because we have a like survival mindset anyway. It's like we don't have time for that mental health stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Like if it's not really
if
bad,
you're homeless, bruv,
like
do
do
you know what I mean?
You've eaten.
Yeah, you eat. Yeah, you're fine. You've eaten.
But it's like it's like you hear about like suicide rates and things like that. It always gets to that end point and everyone's so shocked. And I'm like, but why are you shocked? Like that person was like, there was telltale signs for like a long period of time. But I think for me, especially within like the black community and even like talking to your family and friends about it, I kind of take away all, not to say dramatic terms, but just take it all away, and I just talk to everyone like as a human. I'm not going to say I'm feeling anxious or having a mental health experience. I'm just going to use common words like I'm sad, or I'll ask them like, oh, have you ever been sad, or have you ever experienced this and this, and just have a conversation about it. So that way it kind of allows people to open up, but really and truly you're having like a I don't know, which is like,
is this what's going on here?
It's like we're all exhaling, and like I find if one person or like a few people just like talk about things and they're not embarrassed about it, then everyone else feels quite comfortable. And then it's kind of like it ends up being like a generational thing, because like you're kind of like harping on about it, but then they'll thank you for it eventually. So even though it can be difficult even for me to be anxious and I have these conversations, but I know it means something is going to happen. Like more people are going to feel comfortable to be themselves and have conversations with their parents or their friends and not be embarrassed.
Do you think there's a unique circumstance going on here where we are moving from our parents, who's always in survival mode, or a couple of generations above, they're always in survival mode, and we're the transition from survival to thrival mode, and that brings a lot of like
bars.
Say it again.
Bars.
Do you think that brings a lot of anxiety and stuff?
It can do, because it's like a weight on our shoulders to like be this change that like needs to like see a better world. But I feel like survival mode will never like disappear, because there's like systemic issues. Like you can't, self-help and self-work can only go so far. There's only so many things you can do within your family, with your like, we have to consider the bigger picture. So like we're going from survival to thriving, but there's still challenges when you're thriving. So it's like allow yourself to experience those things and like find a balance. So you will I talk about like a wave or like a heartbeat. We'll be in survival and then we'll thrive. We'll be in survival, then we'll thrive. But it's like, how do you exist in those spaces? So to be fair, our parents or the generations before us, they probably had their thrive moments and they enjoyed themselves. Like from what like pictures we see, they had the time of their lives. And then maybe they were in survival mode in their early years because they were grinding, and which we're doing pretty much. Like we're grinding and we're figuring it out. But then as we get older, it's a constant vibe. So just like find where you sit in that space. And I think our generation is great to an extent. Like we know a lot, but information can only do so much for you. Having all that information can only do so much. Like, what are your actions? Because we can have these conversations, but what happens after this? Do we become better people? Are we kinder to each other? Do we finally consider each other? Like, are we are we mixing better? That's kind of how we go to thrive. So I don't know if we're at the thrive yet, but we're like, we're on a wave. We have our moments.
So I think that's a really good point. Sorry, just before you wrap up, I just wanted to say I feel like all of these feelings that we have, I don't think we can exist in this capitalist world and not feel this way sometimes, because even like high functioning anxiety by definition in terms of your measure, it's output and this idea of expectation of output that's driving you to this anyway. So I feel like sometimes you also have to forgive yourself for feeling this way. Sometimes maybe it might seem like it's for no reason, but it's actually because you're just trying to get through. Yeah. Like human beings weren't meant to just live in a consumerist capitalist world. That's not why we were made, right? So when you're having to not just tread water, you're actually constantly having to swim at high speed just to see next day. Like it's normal to be exhausted. It's normal to be like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing well, because when there is so much information, there will be comparison, because that is the nature of capitalism. Yeah. Mm-hmm. By definition, you're doing better if you can see somebody else doing worse. Yeah. And do you know what I mean? So I think it's a byproduct of the world we live in. So actually there will always be an element of you're having to make allowances for feeling a certain way and knowing that it's a byproduct of the environment and not
it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah.
And that, like, you'll have those moments where you'll feel anxious, but I don't want you to be, like, propelled by your anxiety to fit into this capitalist world. Like, yes, we are in a capitalist world, but if you're treading water and you're, like, literally surviving, I want you to have, like, the most equilibrium internally. Yeah. That I'm, like, you're saying, like, prayers to yourself, or, like, you're saying, like, self-help mantras, and, like, you're having a better experience, not the best experience, while you're treading that water and figuring it out. So you're not super anxious, because the way that you think affects your output. Yeah. And if you're thinking in a negative way, then your outcomes are going to be that in a way. So it's like, the world is what it is. I don't know if we can change it individually as groups, but like, how can you help yourself in that space? Yeah. And that's kind of what I do.
And amazing. If you need to find out more information about it, we'll put the information below. Do you want to let us know?
Yeah, you can find me on almost every platform. My life coach Sandra, and you can also sign up to like our weekly newsletter where you get like updates on kind of like anxiety and how to like support yourself and how your community can support you. And I kind of write you personal letters every week and just be like,
that's so nice.
Hey, this is a check-in, this is how I'm feeling. Don't think that just because I'm a coach in this, it means that I don't still experience it. It's not as bad as it used to be, because I've done the work and I'm doing the work. So you can be a step ahead of your anxiety as well.
Amazing.
Thank you
wow,
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Thanks, Sandra.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so comment below if you've had any experiences similar to what we've talked about. Like we said, check out Sandra's social medias, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye. Bye.